valedictorian, John Gnik.
How's everybody doing? Hi, I'm John, and since my 8th grade year, I've been known to my friends as the 12-year-old. According to some of them, I always will be 12, though it's not so humiliating anymore because I'm taller than most of my friends. But you know, it's funny. From the time I was actually 12 to now, I've hit puberty, met some of my closest friends, been accepted to college, braved Peter Henry's HL math class, and stood up to speak at my high school graduation. But most importantly, I think, I've gotten a permit despite my age to vote in the 2020 election. And that's so important to me because I recognize the gravity of this moment in our country's history. You know, we live in a dangerous time, a time in which being gunned down in a public school is a rational fear, an unrelenting fear. And I know because I used to think about it all the time. So did many of my friends, and so did many of their parents. And that's totally understandable because we live in a time in which the murder of 20 elementary school students is met with inaction. A time in which our lawmakers would rather pocket special interest campaign contributions than listen to the vast majority of Americans who demand a change. Whether that change be expanded access to mental health care or restricted gun control. If we start the count in 1999, there have been 223 deaths due to school shootings. That is 223 too many. I can tell you that there are more to come, and we're not going to be able to stop this if we keep pretending as if there isn't a problem. We live in an unjust time, a time in which a routine encounter with law enforcement can be lethal if you're not white. A time in which the unholy combination of mass incarceration and socioeconomic inequality has trapped black people in this perpetual cycle of recidivism. A time in which our conception of the word thug is tantamount to a skin color. A time in which an 85% male legislature was audacious enough to defy the Constitution and curtail women's autonomy. This country is 51% female, and yet women lack the representation necessary to take control over their own bodies. We live in a time in which gender identity determines whether or not you can fight and die for your country. A time in which the top 1% controls 40% of the wealth in this country. Fellow graduates, we live in a precarious time. A time in which the UN Council on Climate Change tells us that we have 12 years to cut our carbon emissions by at least 40% or we're all toast. A time in which the first kid who will die due to the effects of climate change was born over a decade ago. That's you and me. That's not our parents, not our grandparents. As a humble boy of 12 years old, I take this personally.